One particularly memorable weekend, I was asked to take photos and film a wedding in a picturesque venue. The bride and groom were immigrants from the Dominican Republic, and their love story captivated me even before the ceremony began. The celebration was vibrant, with laughter, music, and an array of traditional dances that filled the air, creating a medley of joy and heartfelt connections. During the reception, held at a cozy restaurant adorned with twinkling lights, the newlyweds took a moment to engage in conversation with me. As I adjusted my camera settings, they shared their story about how they had come to appreciate the opportunity to start anew in the United States. Their eyes glimmered with hope and gratitude, reflecting a yearning for a life filled with promise. In turn, they asked me about my background, intrigued by the man behind the camera. I shared my life story in a nutshell, highlighting the challenges I had overcome and the passion that drove me. They seemed favorably impressed, their warm smiles inviting me into their world. At the end of our conversation, as the evening wound down, they extended a heartfelt invitation for me to visit them in their apartment the following weekend. I accepted politely, touched by their kindness. I felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of making new friends. When the day arrived, I stood at the threshold of their apartment, the air thick with the aroma of spices and warmth that seeped through the door. They welcomed me with open arms, and I was soon seated at their dining table, enjoying a traditional Dominican meal. It served as a foretaste of the vibrant culture that thrived just beneath the surface, a culture I yearned to explore. As we savored each dish, the atmosphere felt electric. Laughter punctuated our conversation, bridging the gaps between our differing backgrounds. Yet, amidst the warmth of shared stories, the wife leaned in and asked me if I had a girlfriend. With my head drooping slightly, I admitted, I don't. She seemed thoughtful for a moment, then excused herself before stepping to her dresser. When she returned, she held in her hands a photograph of a young lady with a tender smile and big dark brown eyes that seemed to look right into my heart. "This is one of my best friends in the Dominican Republic," she said. "We've known each other since childhood. Now she is recovering from a broken relationship and wishes to find a good man. You seem like a very good person. Would you like to get to know her?" For a few moments I was speechless, overwhelmed by the unexpected offer. Questions rushed through my mind like a whirlwind. She looks much younger than I, and I am 45. Does she speak any English? What about the physical distance that separates us? Despite my apprehensions, the thought of exploring a new connection enticed me. The photograph was captivating, and her smiling face hinted at a warmth that mirrored the hospitality I had received that day. Perhaps this was an opportunity for something unforeseen, a chance to cultivate a relationship that could blossom amid the uncertainties of life. My heart raced at the thought of possibilities, unaware that this question could be the catalyst for change I didn't even know I needed. "She looks very nice. What's her name and how old is she?" I asked the newlywed lady, my eyes still gazing at the enchanting eyes in the photo looking back at me. There was an irresistible warmth radiating from her expression, something that felt imbued with layers of history. "Her name is Laura, and she's 22, came the reply, sending a cascade of thoughts racing through my mind. A red flag waved inside me, warning that she might be too young for my 45 years. But the crimson light of hesitation failed to fully dim the spark of curiosity igniting within me. "Does she speak any English?" I continued, each question a tentative step deeper into unknown waters. "No, she doesn't," the lady answered, and another red flag popped up in my mind, signaling that there was likely no way for us to communicate thoroughly. But what if? What if there was a chance, however slim, to bridge the chasm of language and culture? "If you'd like, I can call her now and introduce you to her while I translate between the two of you," she offered, optimism and gentle excitement lacing her tone. "Okay, let's do it," I confirmed, still captivated by the eyes in the photo that seemed to shimmer with opportunity and mystery. The lady picked up her mobile phone and dialed Laura. The phone rang, sending little shivers of anticipation down my spine. When Laura answered, their voices mingled in a melodic exchange of Spanish, a language at that moment feeling like an uncharted territory. The lady then passed me the phone while saying, "Say hello to her in Spanish, hola, ¿cómo estás?" urging me gently. At that time, I didn't have the faintest idea that one day, Spanish would be the language accompanying me for the rest of my life. I took a breath and spoke those words into the mobile. In return, I heard a voice that resembled the sound of a morning bird on a spring day, bright, cheerful, and filled with life. I was enchanted by Laura's voice, captivated by the richness it conveyed despite the distance and barriers. As we continued our conversation, the lady acted as a bridge between our two worlds, deftly translating our words and blending them together into a harmony of understanding. I felt a rapid exchange of curiosity, as if we were dancing on the edges of something profound. Laura laughed softly at one of my attempts to convey a silly joke, a sound that flitted between us like a butterfly. At the end of the phone conversation, after what felt like mere minutes while eternity lingered somewhere just out of reach, I mustered the courage to ask for her phone number. "I promise I will call you again," I insisted, after I buy a Spanish-English dictionary. It was a whimsical promise, perhaps, but it was the first step into a new and vibrant chapter that lay before us. As I hung up the phone, the atmosphere shifted. The evening felt infused with potential. I had ventured into an unknown territory filled with red flags and uncertainties, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something beautiful was about to unfold. Laura's photograph remained in my mind, a reminder of possibility and the exciting unpredictability of love. It hinted at the adventures that awaited me and the language that would soon become my companion, something far greater than I could have ever imagined on that ordinary day.
For those of you who wish to purchase the first 2 complete books of my biography, please check out the description where you will find the links to my books published on Amazon, and you can write any questions or comments below this video.
From that day on, I used to call Laura at least 3 times every week, each time we spoke for about 15 minutes. My heart raced with anticipation during those phone calls, fumbling through the dictionary in my lap, trying to find the right words, all while gazing at her photo that the lady had given me as a present. The soft glow of her smile seemed to infuse each syllable with warmth, urging me to push past my insecurities. During our conversations, I noticed another endearing quality: she possessed a tremendous patience with my baby-like Spanish. Her laughter danced through the phone, encouraging me as I struggled through mispronunciations and awkward phrasing. Each time I stumbled instead of frustration, there was only gentle correction and an unwavering support that made me feel safe in my vulnerability. After about a month of our constant exchanges, I realized not only was our conversation improving due to my advances in Spanish, but our hearts were beginning to draw closer as well. It was as if the distance between us was shrinking despite the miles that lay between our worlds. Inspired by her encouragement, I began writing short poems in Spanish for her, attempting to immortalize the feelings that blossomed with every call. Each poem was a mix of clumsy metaphors and earnest affection, an homage to the tender connection we were cultivating. Those moments transformed my understanding of love, teaching me that communication transcends language. It thrives in the sincerity of the heart. In the delicate dance of our words, I found a new dimension of intimacy, one that promised untold stories still waiting to unfold. It was the end of summer 1998, and I decided to take my 2-week vacation, a delightful escape from the relentless pace of life back in Chicago, and to visit Laura in the Dominican Republic. Throughout the preceding months, I had honed my Spanish through constant practice with my Mexican friends, the lilting rhythms of their language echoing in my ears. The thought of finally conversing with Laura, to see her engaging smile framed by waves of sun-kissed hair, filled me with anticipation. I felt ready to embrace not just the language but the entire culture that enveloped her. As I emerged through the airport doors, a wave of humidity wrapped around me. There she was, like a vision against the backdrop of the bustling terminal, her brother beside her, both wearing expressions of eager welcome. After warm hugs and laughter, their colloquial warmth made the air feel light, yet as she and her brother peppered me with words in the rapid cadence of the Dominican dialect, I felt a sudden jolt of panic. "Como tu ta?" they asked, their eyes sparkling with the joy of reunion. "Despacio, por favor," I begged, a plea for patience cloaked in a mix of humor and frustration. Her brother, undeterred, leaned closer and repeated slowly, "Como tu ta?" Phonetics glided off his tongue like music, but comprehension eluded me. I extracted bits and pieces, sifting through unfamiliar sounds that spun a web of confusion around my mind. After a moment, maybe 2, where the sun seemed to pause just long enough for clarity, I finally grasped the essence of his inquiry. We hopped into a car, the interior air heavy with the faint scent of coconut. As we drove out of Santo Domingo, waves of heat shimmered across the asphalt like distant waves on the Caribbean shore. The journey was about an hour and a half, Winding through streets where vibrant colors collided with the living pulse of the island, time dripped like honey, slowed by the landscape, a medley of old buildings, street vendors peddling fruits and trinkets, and clusters of children playing, their laughter floating through the air. Their home lay on the outskirts of Boca Chica, a small coastal town dense with charm and poverty in equal measure. Upon arrival, I was struck not by extravagance but by simplicity. The home was humbly furnished, its smallness a canvas of warmth and community. The front part showcased a modest shop, lined with shelves that held an assortment of groceries and fabrics, a testament to the family's tenacity. After unloading my luggage, I allowed myself to settle into this new rhythm. We gathered around a rickety wooden table for lunch, the centerpiece of our introductions. The meal was a typical Dominican dish known as habichuela, a generous serving of rice, beans, and chicken, crowned with a slice of avocado that glistened under the golden light filtering in through the window. A pitcher of freshly squeezed orange juice plopped down in the center, its vibrant hue a reminder of the sun-drenched afternoons ahead. As we shared the meal, I transitioned from nervous newcomer to eager participant. The conversation began to flow more smoothly, laughter interspersed with Spanish-filled moments, each word a bridge that brought us closer. Laura's father soon joined us, his presence filling the room with stories that unspooled the history of his childhood. He spoke of the land, of the turbulent days of his youth, painting a picture that enveloped us in both reality and reverie. We spent long days exploring Boca Chica's stunning beaches, where the turquoise waves crashed against the shore like enthusiastic applause, and evenings filled with music and dance resonated through the air. Each sunset etched itself into my heart, a fireball dipping into the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple, and reminded me that in this foreign land, I was finding a piece of myself. Thus, each day unfolded, drenched in the warmth of kinship. My Spanish, once tentative, blossomed into a conversation, laughter, and connection. Laura, however, did not live in that house. She lived in Santo Domingo with her mother and sister, in a neighborhood much more pitiful and ridden with poverty than the infamous Bronx in New York. Her parents were divorced, a reality that cast a subtle shadow over the warmth of our reunion. The next day, after a good night's rest in the serene tropics, Laura and her brother, who lived with their father, took me to the city to visit their mom and sister. As we drove into Santo Domingo, the vibrant pulse of the capital began to envelop me, yet I could not shake the feeling of unease that built as we approached their neighborhood. The streets were unpaved and filled with dust, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that surrounded us. Children clad in second or maybe even third-hand clothes played in the dirt, their laughter mingling with the sounds of the city, echoing off crumbling concrete walls. The vibrant colors that danced through the day seemed to hide the undercurrent of poverty that threaded through their lives, painting a picture that lingered in the air like stale perfume. I felt a profound sadness wash over me, alongside an overwhelming sense of privilege that contrasted sharply with what lay before my eyes. Laura's home was a small three-room house, capped with corrugated roofing sheets that glinted under the fierce sun. The structure was modest, almost makeshift, yet it was woven into the fabric of the neighborhood. Adjacent to the back of the house were a shower and a toilet, where modern conveniences were replaced by the manual labor of daily life. To take a shower, I had to scoop water from a big barrel into a plastic jug and pour it over my body, a ritual that felt both foreign and intimate, reminding me how far removed I was from the comforts of my Chicago life. Just like our grandmother used to do it, Laura said, a smile breaking through the discomfort as she watched me with curiosity. Despite the stark circumstances, her optimism shone brightly, and I felt a warmth in my heart for her resilience. Using the toilet was an adventure in itself as I maneuvered to manually flush it with a bucket of water, all the while trying to maintain some sense of dignity in the face of such humbling conditions. From the back of the house, I could oversee a brook, the water polluted with garbage, hovering with flies and mosquitoes, a scenery you could only find in some horror films or read about in a fiction novel. The sight was a harsh reminder of the stark realities many faced here, a world illuminated by the sunlight but shadowed by neglect and despair. Yet, amid the squalor, life pulsed vibrantly. Laura's mother greeted us with a tender embrace, her smile warm and genuine. She ushered us into the tiny living area, cluttered yet filled with the essence of family life. We sat around a worn wooden table sharing stories and laughter, momentarily forgetting the grim reality beyond the walls. Her sister, full of youthful exuberance, joined us, her laughter ringing out like music amidst the chaos. Over cups of fresh, sweetened Colombian coffee and plates of rice and beans, I could feel the bonds of familial love in the air, fragile yet unbreakable. In that small house, I was not merely an outsider, but a witness to resilience and hope. I realized that, despite the bleakness that threatened to consume their environment, Laura and her family were rich in the things that truly mattered: love, laughter, and the strength to appreciate the little joys in life. The atmosphere was suddenly impregnated with a grim cloud after I asked, "Laura, where is your sister Paula?" The question hung heavy in the air, the innocent curiosity of a visitor colliding with the stark reality of the moment. Laura's response was immediate, her demeanor shifting as she took my hand, her head slightly bowed. With a soft urgency, she led me to a dimly lit room at the back of the small house, where a faint scent of antiseptic mixed with the tropical humidity. There, I beheld a fragile body lying in bed, covered with a white sheet that contrasted sharply with the shadows of the room. The edges of the sheet were neatly tucked in, forming a cocoon of an unkind reality around Paula. I had heard murmurs, whispers of her affliction, since my arrival, tales of illness shared almost in hushed tones, but nothing could have prepared me for the sight before me. Paula turned her head slowly, her big ebony eyes finding mine. The world around us faded, and in that instant, a fragile connection formed. With an angelic smile gracing her face, she spoke in Spanish, her voice a gentle breath in the stillness of the room. "Hello, Antonio, welcome, how are you?" I felt a pang of disbelief mingled with warmth as I approached her, our eyes locked together. It was as if the darkness surrounding her was unable to infiltrate the light that emanated from her spirit. "Very well, Paula, and you?" I replied in my improving Spanish, each word a small victory, a testament to my willingness to bridge the gap between our worlds. I gently embraced her, feeling the frailness of her form against me, a poignant reminder of her struggle. I had only learned a few days before that she was afflicted with tuberculosis, a disease that painted her beauty with the brushstrokes of hardship. Paula was only 21 at the time, a year younger than Laura, and yet, the weight of her illness seemed to age her beyond her years. I could sense the spirit of resilience that flickered like a candle fighting against the winds of despair. As I sat by her bedside, I was struck by the silence that enveloped the room, punctuated only by the distant sounds of the bustling neighborhood, a stark contrast to the fragile stillness that defined this space. At that moment I found myself reflecting on the nature of my journey, one that had traversed 3,098 kilometers from Chicago to Santo Domingo, a city that bore the name Holy Sunday. It encapsulated a paradox, as here I stood before Paula, whose existence felt like a sacred testament amidst the hustle of life encircling us. I was still imbued with the spirits I had acquired in the monastery years earlier, teachings of compassion and the existence of light even in the depths of darkness. Now, that spirit found a place and time to manifest itself in this small room, where illness threatened to lay claim, yet the essence of life shimmered. I welcomed Laura's invitation to spend a week with them, without having any qualms about contracting tuberculosis from Paula. Above all, even though the family was evangelical, not Catholic, we embraced our differences as compliments. Each evening, as twilight deepened into shadows, I knelt contritely at Paula's bedside. She was frail, a candle flickering in the wind, yet her spirit shone through her fragile form. I had brought my rosary, a string of polished beads cradling whispers of hope. Together we navigated the prayer, teaching my beloved chants to her innocent understanding. Each Our Father, Hail Mary and Glory Be was not just a vain recital but pearls of our tears and supplication rising to the highest God himself. In the numinous silence that followed each prayer, I glimpsed a celestial connection, one that transcended our differences. I saw in Paula's eyes a flicker of understanding, a spark that ignited deep faith in the face of adversity. It was a week spent not just in worry for her health but also in a shared compassion, threading our disparate beliefs into a single, shining strand of hope, a bond neither illness nor faith could sever. As the days turned into a blur of emotions, laughter shared with Laura, the heaviness of Paula's condition, and the bustling life outside, I realized that I had stepped into a realm of suffering and joy. Laura, with her unwavering loyalty to her sister, crafted a sanctuary filled with warmth even in the face of adversity. Paula, though physically restrained, wielded a grace that spoke volumes, her spirit igniting a desire within me to savor every moment spent in their world. Together, We formed a connection that transcended language and cultural barriers, one that illuminated the truth that love and compassion were universal currencies. I discovered that Paula, even in her condition, possessed a remarkable ability to uplift those around her, enveloping us in resilience that defied the odds. As sunsets poured molten gold over the horizon, casting a serene glow across the room, I listened to the stories exchanged, fragments of lives lived, dreams hung on to desperately, and laughter that danced in the air like fireflies bright against the backdrop of night. In this embrace of life and death, I found myself irrevocably changed, transformed by the warmth of their love and the starkness of their reality. My time in Santo Domingo became more than a mere vacation. It evolved into a pilgrimage of sorts, a sacred journey that revealed the profound beauty of humanity in its rawest and vulnerable form. And in that small, unassuming house, I stumbled upon a truth that forever altered my sight. The grace of connection, woven through the threads of suffering and joy, becomes a lifeline, a divine spark illuminating the darkest corners of our existence. As we parted, my mind swirled with the contrast of my own life and theirs, a profound understanding settling in the crevices of my heart. Laura, with her vivacious spirit, was a bridge between two worlds, and as we drove back toward the comforts of Boca Chica, the sorrowful images lingered in my mind, intertwining with the warmth of familial love I had felt in that small three-room house. I understood in ways I had never before the beauty found even in the most difficult of circumstances. I felt an even greater heaviness and guilt when I was flying back home to Chicago. As the plane ascended through the clouds, I looked out at the vast expanse of ocean disappearing beneath me, a world that most Dominicans could only dream of. I pondered the life I was returning to, a life saturated in comforts, privileges, and opportunities that I had long taken for granted while living in the United States. The weight of the memories, the bright laughter of Paula, the hopeful resilience in Laura's eyes, and the unspoken struggles hidden within their modest home pressed heavily upon my chest, blurring the lines between gratitude and despair. Although I felt a genuine gratitude for the life I led, that feeling was ephemeral, destined to vanish in the near future, replaced by a bitter rancor that I could almost taste. It gnawed at me, a constant reminder that my comfort came at a price paid by those who remained bound by the stark realities of poverty. Upon my return home, I continued my conversations with Laura, those late-night exchanges that formed a bridge between the two lives I now inhabited. I bathed in her sweet-sounding words, each syllable dripping with warmth and affection. She called me my son, a nickname that felt fitting yet humbling. I countered with my moon, a reflection of the way she brightened my nights, casting silver light upon the shadows. As our conversations unfolded, I recalled the late evenings we spent holding hands, walking along a seemingly endless beach by the Caribbean Sea. The moonlight danced upon the water, illuminating the path we strolled, our footsteps muffled by the gentle lapping of the waves. I can still feel the warmth of her hand clasped in mine, reassuring and steady, a lifeline amid the tumult of my emotions. We would often stop beneath a towering palm tree, its fronds swaying like a whispering audience to our youth and tenderness. We would sit down in the cool, soft sand, gazing up at the twinkling stars above, a night sky scattered with diamonds, each one a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay beyond our reach. I still remember the gentle breeze that caressed Laura's hair, sending strands glistening in the moonlight like ribbons of silk swaying through the night. In those cherished moments, I felt like time had slowed, the world around us fading into a hazy backdrop as we existed solely in our cocoon of intimacy. I joined the breeze, my fingers entwining with her hair, caressing it softly as if afraid to break the spell that held us. As I embraced her, the universe narrowed to our two hearts, beating in a rhythm forged in vulnerability and connection. Then, in a moment that felt both surreal and inevitable, we kissed, a soft melding of lips under the constellation of stars. The sound of a romantic bachata serenaded us in the background, the music wrapping around us like a lover's embrace, infusing the air with romance and the promise of hope. But as the plane neared Chicago, with its skyline rising to greet me, I felt the stark contrast between the warmth of those memories and the cool indifference of the life awaiting me. A city of steel and glass sprawled beneath me, a sharp juxtaposition to the life and love I had found in Santo Domingo. Even as the ghosts of my time spent in the Caribbean lingered in my mind, I felt the cruel weight of reality settling in, perhaps a burden I would carry for a long time. I was returning to a world of schedules and obligations, to a life where the bittersweet flavor of my experiences would color my perspective, reminding me continually of the stark inequalities that shape our existence. In that moment, I vowed to keep the essence of Laura and Paula with me, to honor their lives by changes in my own, to refuse the comfort of apathy. Though I returned to a life of privilege, I knew I had been touched irrevocably by love, resilience, and the stark clarity of their reality. And so, with a heart heavy yet determined, I prepared to land, carrying within me a piece of the sun and moon that had forever altered my view of the world.
For those of you who wish to purchase the first 2 complete books of my biography, please check out the description where you will find the links to my books published on Amazon, and you can write any questions or comments below this video.